Stop the cap.
I got this new holster. This damn thing is stabbing the shit out of me. Anyway, so I'm going to get lunch because I had to leave the room because me and this other dude were about to get into it. This white dude, he's like a white conservative, and I'm like, motherfucker, you ain't getting around me when it comes to this goddamn money and the idea and concept of stability. But I do like engaging in conversation. I'm sure he took something away from it, but sometimes, man, me and this motherfucker be getting, we be ready to get to blows and shit because, you know, he gets caught up in a lot of rhetoric. Like, he subscribes to a whole bunch of conservative rhetoric, and it's so much about the rhetoric and so much about the ideology, he doesn't even listen to what the fuck he's saying. You know, and I'm sitting there, listening to his talking points, and I'm like, you're the one with the birth rate population issue. You're the one with the crashing birth rates, or at least everybody claims that they're so concerned about it as white people. You know what I mean? I damn near wanted to say, like Tariq Nasheed, when them white supremacists call his show, get your birth rates up, because like the conservative rhetoric, and it is specifically conservative. The liberals got their own goofy shit. Everybody should be gay, and there's 33 flavors of genders and all this other goofy shit. But the conservatives specifically, it's like their concept of, like white solipsism, and white people are the best, and we're at the top, and everybody needs to meet our standards, and everybody should want to emulate us, and if they can't do it, they just can't do it, we're awesome. And it's like this assumption that it's all about hard work and personal responsibility. And I'm like, you're not getting past me, because I'm like, y'all motherfuckers don't want to pay anybody. And then you want to talk about low birth rates. I'm like, I understand how they don't see the contradiction, right? They'll sit there and they create this whole, they like shame black people, create this whole idea. Well, if you can't afford to have kids, well, then you shouldn't have kids, right? That's what they say, right? And then back it up with, we don't want to pay anybody. And I'm like, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? White people are not going to have babies because they believe in the very rhetoric that you just stated about, if you can't afford X, Y, and Z, then you can't pass go, you can't collect $200, so they don't. Then you turn around and then you're bitching about, well, why aren't you having kids? Like, it is the most insane thing ever. And I was trying to break this down to him, right? So, and pardon me, my voice is still cracking and all that stuff. I'm a habitual sleep with the fan blowing in my face person. And it's been like this all day. But anyway, and I've talked about this point before. I'm not saying anything new that I haven't said in previous videos. But here's the thing that like really hit me today in having the conversation with him. And it was about stability. Not just about the pay, about stability. Right? So when somebody buys a home, right, it's not just about the pay, it's also about the stability. Like, when you buy a home in one particular location, right? And especially when you start talking about bringing kids into the world, right? Now they're going to school, right? You don't want to be like the what do you call it? The army brats, right? Where you're, every like 3 years you're moving your kids around. Most people don't want that. They want their kids to develop friends and all that other shit, like especially out in the burbs, right? Some Sandlot type of shit, right? The kids are riding around in their BMX bikes and their Mongoose bikes on some ET, type of shit, right? Right, all the kids in the neighborhood, right, around the same age, the parents in the neighborhood around the same age, right? Couple old people here and there, right? Like, that's the ideal. At least I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just Hollywood, right? But the idea is that you're going to be there. You're going to be in that house that you buy whenever you get married. You're going to be in that house for at least the next 20 years, right? Can I say 20 years? 15 years? Maybe you'll upgrade or something like that, right? Which again, I have a whole problem with the Ponzi scheme of fucking houses where it's like, oh, we'll just make the next generation pay for it. But my house is an asset that will appreciate by 200% every 5 years. I'm like, how does that work? I don't know how that works. And then you have a continuation of people birthing and having kids and all that. I don't know how that works. I bought this house for $10,000 in 1960, and I will now sell it for $1.5 million in 2024. You're like, huh? What? It's just and then you look at inflation, it's like that. No, that shit. What you're talking about far exceeds what anybody is paid in that same amount of time. You're nuts. You're out of your mind. Which is where BlackRock and comes in and buys it all up, and private equity and all that bullshit, right? Which makes it even more impossible. And then you enter this dystopian future, and then the young people are like, well, fuck it then, right? And so I'm like trying to break all this down, but I'm like, let's go back to the stability. I said, okay, stability means that you're going to be at that job or in that career, in that field, for the next, 25 years at the very least, or up until retirement, right? I'm saying there's no guarantees. People do move around. People can move around multiple times. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, it's because they move because there's a better or greater opportunity, right? The older generations that I saw, when they moved or people moved away, the father still kept his generally not the same position, but was working in the same field. You know what I mean? And he would just move around, promotion, played the whole corporate ladder game. I'm like, where do you see that happening for younger people? Where do younger people see themselves working for a company for the next 30 years? I'm like, you don't have the stability. In other words, take what I'm saying about, or look at the past, right? Look at, especially for those that grew up in the burbs. The parents, they stayed and they worked in one field, and they worked there and, until they retired, basically. And then you have the contrast to that, which is today, where you see companies doing mass layoffs to make it look like their quarterly earnings went up, right? Because employees are an expense, right? Your quarterly earnings didn't actually go up. You just fired a whole bunch of employees that you're paying $48,000 a year. And then you go to your shareholders and you say, oh, look, we have greater quarterly earnings. Oh, our stock prices are going to go up. Oh, or the government, I forget how the shit works, but the government does something where the government gives corporations money and they're supposed to use it to hire more people, but instead all they do is buy back their stock options. I forget the exact details on that, right? But I'm saying when things are being done like that, right, there's no stability in that, right? It's not just about the pay. It's about the idea that your job is relatively secure. Can I use that term? Relatively secure, right? That there won't be, that you won't get the job and then 3 weeks later they're talking about, we got to let you go, right? There's got to be some sort of protections and guarantees in there. If you don't have that, well, again, people are not going to pass go and they're not going to collect $200. And what I was trying to explain to him, I was like, look, dude, I don't care. I don't we're pretending like we're trying to address the problem. His solution was basically just nothing but a whole bunch of personal responsibility. I'm like, that's not a solution, dude. It sounds to me like you want the problems to not cost you. And I'm not saying that you individually did anything. What I'm saying is your ideology, your ilk, the people who came before you, who you subscribe to their belief system, they fucked up the system. Okay? And that system that is owned, operated, and controlled by white people, okay, you all are cannibalizing and fucking up your own kids, right? It's very interesting. It's like what somebody said in my comment section. They were like, white supremacy doesn't go out with a bang, it goes out with a whimper. And that's what I see. But like what blows my mind, and this is where black people need to wake up, because when black people running around trying to look for, trying to shame white people, oh, you guys, you did X, Y, and Z to us, and ooh, don't you feel bad? No, the fuck they don't feel bad. They don't feel bad. And you know why they don't feel bad? Because they're sociopaths and they don't even give a fuck about their own kids. Like, focus on that. Focus while you sitting there trying to make white people feel bad about fucking up a group that they're not a member of. Remember, these are the people who fuck up the future of their own kids. These are the people who cannibalize their own kids. And they don't give a fuck. The system is just so big and there's so many degrees of separation. I don't have nothing to do with that. They're more concerned about being blamed individually than what the fuck is going on. And they're doing nothing to correct the problem because, more capitalism. More capitalism. Right? So America is about to look like, for white people at least, it's going to look like Japan out in this bitch. It's going to look like Korea. And I mean, they fucked with the dials so much. And granted, we're African Americans, we're like on the boat, we're along for the ride. But I mean, they fucked with the dials so hard on multiple fronts. They fucked with the dials on, they don't want to pay anybody. They fucked with the dials on the housing market. They fucked with the dials when it comes to the cost of childcare. They fucked with the dials when it comes to the gender dynamics, all the feminism and everything else like that. Again, I'll say it, point blank, period. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, because at the end of the day, most women want to, they want to date up. They want to date hypergamously. Women fought to make more money, only to claim once they're making more money that they want to date a man who's making even more money. And I'm like, isn't that the reason why you activated feminism in the first place? Isn't that the reason why feminism was needed? Because you felt that there were too many white men in positions of power? Well, now those men are no longer in positions of power, right? Or there's fewer of them. And then you turn right around and you start complaining about how, either A, there's nobody on your level, or B, Grant Wellington III, no longer makes enough money to date you, right? It's just the dumb, like it's like idealism, right? Like freaking Elon Musk and his racist ass calls it the woke mind virus, right? That's what he calls it. And I'm saying, I can see there being some evidence of that shit, because I don't fucking agree with everything, that the fucking left does. But it's like, these are the people that are claiming themselves to be racially and morally superior compared to all the other, racial groups of the fucking planet. And yet they do everything that is counterproductive to them even actually procreating. Right? And they're actually being in continuation of shit. And then they freak out because all the other people are less on that bullshit, or they have their own pathologies due to white supremacy, like what's happened in the black community, where the kids are still being born, they're just not being born underneath the proper patriarchal traditional foundation, because they're not, the men are not gainfully employed. It starts there. Then it rolls into the, the other areas, right? Starts men not being gainfully employed, then rolls into feminism, then rolls into, hip hop culture and street culture being elevated as the standard, right? And then you just get into, all this bullshit. And there's a whole conversation to be had about black women who want to maintain their autonomy. I was having a conversation with Captain Solo about that, about how the best black man to get with is a guy like Future, right? Because a guy like Future, he's got money, right? But he doesn't have any time. So if a woman's trying to maintain her autonomy, he's the best guy to go for, because she can get the bag, right? She can get the baby, right? And not have to deal with any of the fucking patriarchy, because guys like NBA Youngboy, Cam Newton, Future, right? Country Wayne, right? Like Future's got, I think he has 8 children. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm saying that means even if he was to try to be an active father in the lives of all the children he has, which are by different women, he can only spend 1/8 of his time with each woman and each child, which means the rest of the time, right? The rest of the time, 7/8 of the time, right? The women have their autonomy, and he's got to pay child support. So they got the bag, they got their own autonomy. They don't have to, follow a man. They don't have to subscribe to shit, right? He's not in their hair. I got the baby, I got the bag, and I got to deal with none of the patriarchy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I even got a quote from Oprah Winfrey, where Oprah Winfrey talks about why she didn't marry Stedman. And she says point blank, quote, end quote, which is that I couldn't live the lifestyle that I've created for myself getting married. I'm like, we knew it. Ain't got nothing to do with dust. It has nothing to do with rape and pillage. It has nothing to do with any of the colorism. None of that. None of that. Even Vivica A. Fox. This is a clip of Vivica A. Fox, and she's over there talking about her situation with 50 Cent. 50 Cent, she is, I think, 11 years older than 50 Cent. And 50 Cent in the early 2000s hollered at her, thank you, Vivica Fox, for wearing that dress. You know what I mean? And he was parading her around and everything, and she fucked it up. And today, his net worth stands at 40 million and her net worth is 3 million. I'm like, Vivica, how the fuck did you fuck that up? How did you fuck that up? And I'm not saying that maybe 50 would have stayed. Who knows? But 50 was digging her. Nobody can say that 50 wasn't digging Vivica Fox back in the day. Nobody can say that. Vivica was fine. But, so the black community has, all these issues because, the system of white supremacy, redlining, blackballing, Jim Crow, eminent domain, urban renewal, comic leasing, debt peonage, COINTELPRO, the purging of black communities, CIA, Iran Contras, dumping drugs in the black community, 1994 crime bill, so on and so forth, right? So we got all these things affecting us. But white people, this shit is 100% self-imposed. 100% self-imposed. And again, it goes back, you look at the structuring of Europe, it was kings, queens, nobles, and peasants. You know what I mean? You can use Google AI, freaking Microsoft Copilot. Go in there and type in all of the fucking peasant revolts in Europe, over European history. Tons of them. All different countries. All that blue blood shit, they're beneath me. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers sitting up there like they're the goddamn Merovingian from the Matrix. That's how these folks, that's how they think of themselves. They have white people have essentially a caste system, an unspoken caste system, and that's how they treat things. Right? Granted, it could be argued there's a little bit more upward mobility. If you're useful to the upper classes, they will elevate you. But if you're just an average motherfucker, to hell with you and your genes and whether you should be able to start a family or any of that, right? Which in one breath of elitism, right? I get that, right? I kind of get that. But then in the other breath, when you want to talk about, tribalism and group economics, I'm like, you do realize you're suppressing your population, right? You do realize that. Only to bitch later about being outvoted. It's hilarious. I find it all quite entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. It's very entertaining to me to sit there and watch them self-destruct. You know what I mean? And it disrupts and it shatters, right? The ideas, right? The inferiority complex that black people have, where they run around and they're like, these white people, they know what they're doing and they're so smart and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, where the fuck is this going on? Do you not see what they're doing? Do you not see how they've, crashed? They're crashing their system. Do you not see it? Right? They're not doing anything active to correct it. I mean, even when it comes to the politicians, they don't do anything active to correct it. They go in there and the Republicans and the Democrats play good cop, bad cop. They don't want there to be a populist movement. They don't want there to be a super majority. They don't. I talked about this when it comes to the gun control. When Republicans are supposed to be the two-way people, and then whenever they get in and they got the House and the Senate and the presidency, you know what I mean? All of it, they all of a sudden they're not pushing any two-way bills. Soon as a Democrat gets into office, then all of a sudden, they're pushing, the freaking Hearing Protection Act and national reciprocity, and trying to get SBRs off of the NFA list and whatnot, and then they'll say, oh well, they're obstructing it. They're obstructionist. That's what the problem is. They're obstructing our our ability to pass this bill. It's bullshit. They don't want to pass it. It's just lip service, and then all the idiots sit around in the background and they start fighting and arguing with people. Like, that's just what they do, So it's just like talking to him, and I'm at my destination, so I'm about to get out. But talking to this guy, I'm just like, like you're too stuck in your ideology. I'm sure he's gonna go back, and it's always fuck what I gotta say, and then the motherfucker thinks about the shit for like 3 days, and then he's like, I've been thinking about what you said. I'm like, yeah, motherfucker. Like, I'm like, yeah, you act like you're not listening, but you're hearing me. You're hearing what the fuck I'm saying, because I'm making sense. God damn it! Everybody in this goddamn room is intelligent. Don't sit here and try to fucking act like what the fuck I'm saying doesn't make sense. I'm like, at the end of the day, you can personal responsibility it to death all you motherfucker want. Bottom line, ain't no baby's gonna come out of that. And then you'll be bitching about that later on. Oh, it's a white country, and how come white people aren't maintaining the majority? Oh, there's too many Mexicans. Oh, they're coming across the border. Oh, what's wrong? See, the problem is the left wokeness. Da, 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 da. I'm like, at the end of the day, you nor the left actually wants to pay anybody. They've been talking about $15 an hour, forever. As soon as Democrats do $15 an hour, y'all start firing people, start trying to put in automation and everything else, right? Because a corporate executive, he really needs $40 million a year. Like, if he was to be reduced down to $30 million a year, I mean, God forbid, the shit is just retarded. And then, you got that whole aspect of shareholders and all that shit, trying to keep them happy. At the end of the day, I really blame the boomers, right? Because the boomers are the asset holding class in this country. And so this whole society has been geared towards the prosperity of boomers. Everything they've done, their, pensions, freaking, property values, mergers and acquisitions, owning shares, all this sort of stuff that, again, they don't teach people in school, which why would they? Because, right, the more people that get involved in that, the more of a problem it becomes, and they don't want to nationalize everything. Hell, the United States invades other countries for nationalizing their resources. Iran, you know what I'm saying? What other country tried to Venezuela, right? Iraq. Any country that tries to nationalize their fucking resources, they're like, oh no, fuck that shit. We got to go in there and bring them some freedom. It's just so, like, basically Americans are like little ants in this like little ant farm that's controlled by, a handful of elites, the corporations, the banks, and the military industrial complex. And all they do is take their money, throw it into politics, right? Make sure that they have enough topics that are triggering abortion, gun control, the border, all these other things. Never really going to do anything about any of them. They're just hot button issues to keep you distracted from the actual real issue, which is job stability, wages, right? Keep you distracted from that, get you to focus on, race, right? And feeling some type of way, getting white people to feel like, oh, we're losing power and da 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 da, right? And completely ignoring the fact that, like, your birth rates would be much higher if younger people were able to get their lives established sooner, right? Again, just saying, right? Because one thing that irritates me, because some people argue like you shouldn't be telling white people this shit because, when you see your enemy making a mistake, you shouldn't correct them. And I agree 100%. But I got a serious fucking problem with somebody saying that, like, from an intellectual standpoint, that their goal is A, and that they're trying to get to, their goal is A, but yet they're presenting me with, like, Z. I'm like, Z's not gonna get you to A. Like, what are you talking about? Z is not gonna get you to A. So like, my brain, I get irritated with that shit. Like, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Man, that's a big ass Asian dude, man. I mean, that motherfucker gotta be like 400 pounds. I mean, damn. I mean, talk about shit ass health. What the fuck? What the hell was his mother feeding him? Damn. Anyway, but yeah. So that's my rant for now. But yeah, the stability thing, that's really what I picked up from his conversation, because I'm like, nah, I mean, y'all, not only do you not want to pay anybody, there's really no stability out here. There's none of that 30 in and 30 out type of shit. That doesn't exist anymore. I was watching this video about Japan and how people in Japan, when they go, and I know Japan has its own, birth rate problem, and I think just Japan's society is just too strict. It's too restrictive. It's suffocating. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm saying, in Japan, when you work for a company, you work for that company for life. They believe in life employment. And, Cap told me, because Cap spent time in Japan, because General Motors, sent him over to Japan. And when he was in Japan, he talked about how basically they would rotate people on the line. So, like, basically when production was down, they would cross-train people so that everybody in that plant knew how to do other people's jobs, right? Oh my God. Did I say the magic word efficiency? You know what I'm saying? But America, nah, fuck efficiency. We're going to make it look shiny and bright. We're going to make it look like we're hitting our mark and hitting the numbers when we're really not, right? And you see, we've seen this. Everything is like this fake ass pump and dump type of shit. And I'm like, damn, man, you ain't going to get no stability out of that. And what's so crazy, you know what gets me with white people? It's the audacity to be surprised. That's what fucks me up, right? You want to go in there, you want to, fuck up the black community. You want to, disenfranchise black people, and then you're surprised about when you're in Baltimore at the light and you get ran up on with a pistol and the motherfucker talking about get the fuck out of the car. You're surprised by that. Right? You want to go and you want to create systems that make it virtually impossible. You get kids, mired in student loan debt and buried with, it's freaking $50,000 a semester to go to such and such a university and whatnot. Right? You get them mired in debt, and then you don't want to pay people, and then you're worried, you're crying about the fact that, well, why aren't they having kids? Like, it's the audacity. This is like what Bill Burr said. It's the audacity to be surprised. If you I would much prefer the white people that are doing all the bullshit to be like, yes, I did it. Right? Give me the evil laugh and be like, and just own the fact this is what the fuck you're doing. But these people, like, they genuinely express themselves to be shocked and surprised about why things are falling apart, why things are collapsing, why families are not like staying together, right? I'm like, you threw feminism at it, then you threw we don't want to pay young men at it, then you told men that they're toxic and that they're the fucking problem, right? Then you did all this shit in the markets, right? All this manipulative shit in the markets, right? Which just screwed over, an entire, 2 generations, your kids and your grandkids, and then you're sitting there bitching about the shit that you did. Like I had to check a dude the other day about, and I know I gotta end this video, but I'm saying I had to check the dude the other day about, he was talking about, yeah, well, that's what y'all get for what y'all voted for. I'm like, did millennials vote for the ending of unions? I'm like millennials were kids back then. That was the 80s. Most millennials were under the age of 10. What are you talking about? Voted for. We had all we did was sit there and watch the shit on TV. All we did is sit there and watch Ronald Reagan order the air traffic controllers back to their jobs when they tried to go on strike. All we did was watch, the fucking, Timothy McVeigh and with the Oklahoma City, right? All we did was watch all that shit go down. You know what I'm saying? You were a fully functioning adult when that shit went down. You voted for the shit. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just like their timelines are even fucked up. But I think that's what gets me. It's the audacity to be surprised. I'm like, this is the byproduct of that shit, right? So, like, example, if you want there to be intact families, right? Right? Like they'll sit there and they'll try to, oh, we got to have Jesus and you got to have these intact families, right? They don't want to talk about the cost, right? They just want to talk about the outcome, right? Even though intact families cost money, which means that men have to make, right, substantial wages, right? But I'm like, you remove all of that and then you act like there's not going to be an equal and opposite reaction. If you remove all of that, you are going to end up with dysfunction. And again, what they always want to come through and replace it with is, oh, well, here's some Jesus. Here's some Jesus, right? Because Jesus doesn't cost anything. Throwing a Bible at your ass doesn't cost you anything. Giving you full medical and dental, right, that extends to your fucking kids and all that other shit, that costs money. They don't want to pay that, right? Paying a man enough to support a family, that costs money. They don't want to pay that. They just want you to be drunk on Jesus to get you to fall in line without you actually having the tangible resources to make moves. This is the same exact gaslighting that they've been doing to black people. They're now only doing it to young white people. It's the same formula. It's the same thing. And this is what you all have to recognize. But you all don't recognize. And like I said, unfortunately, black people are on the same boat. We really can't afford white people being dumbasses like this, because if the system were to ever change or there were ever to be significant shifts in the system, a significant portion of white people would have to recognize that they're being screwed over by elite white people. But instead, they focus on the idea of, it's minorities and there's other things. And we must preserve whiteness, even though at the same time we're not trying to pay anybody. We must preserve our culture. You ain't preserving shit with what you're doing or what you co-sign. And that's the crazy part, because there's so many white like regular schmegular dudes that they subscribe to elite ideology when they're not a part of the elite white class. And they subscribe to it and they believe it, and then they think that by co-signing them that they're somehow elevating themselves. I'm like, you're not. You're screwing over your own kids and your own grandkids. You don't see it. You know what I mean? One guy, I had to check his ass. I'm like, don't you have a child that still lives with you who's in their 20s? Yeah, shut the fuck up. I didn't say shut the fuck up, but I made my point. I'm like, so saith the man that's got a grown ass kid still living with him. Fuck out of here. I'm like, and at the end of the day, math. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with his son. The fact of the matter is his son doesn't make enough money to pay $2,000 in rent and pay back his student loans and pay his fucking car note. That's just math. There's nothing deficient with your son. He doesn't make enough money, period. That's why he's still living with you, dumbass. Damn. The ideology and the white people rhetoric that they've embraced for so long is kicking their ass right now. And here I am, the black man, saying, look, this is what the fucking deal is. No. Like their brains can't process the shit. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the feminists are like, the future, what do they say? The future is feminine. No, the future is black. The future is black. Go look at the birth rates of the continent of Africa versus the birth rates of all of Europe and North America. The future is black. So, anyway, it ain't no sweat off of my back. I'm just sitting there, just trying to make sense of what the fuck. I'm like, y'all are some idiots, man. I'm like, okay. In a minute, I'm just going to be quiet about the shit and just watch their shit implode. Unfortunately, however, shit could easily end up like what you see in the UK, where these people, once shit bottoms out for them, please believe they will be targeting black people. They will be focusing on other minorities as well. And they will be out here shooting the fucking place up on some Turner Diary shit because they're mad because they were ineffective or didn't realize that the real challenge is against their own system. It's not against the fucking minorities. But you can't tell these motherfuckers that shit because they can't get their fucking heads out of their asses. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.